Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Ballava Girivardhari Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivraj Kacharstitira Sata Shri Srimad Chidandi Goswami Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivraj Kacharstitira Sata Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai 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 Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Gangamai Ki Jai, Jamunamai Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is the third canto, chapter 2, text 10. Right? Because yesterday I was told to do 10. Because yesterday you didn't do the verse, correct? Is that right?
Yesterday Maharaj didn't have class.
Yeah, there was no verse yesterday. And the day before was 9.
The day before it was 10.
It was? Oh, well, Natabara. He's not here. He said it was. You sure it was 10? Okay. Well then. So it's 11 today. Okay. Huh?
It was supposed to be 12 today, but Maharaj...
So it's 11. All right. Let us go to text 11. Okay. Maybe everything that I prepared for text 10 can be also applicable to text 11. Let's see. Okay. 3, 2. Just a little easier for me to see it here. Pradarsyat tapta tapasam avitripta drishyam nrinam Ariyantaradhadyastu Svabimbam lokalochanam Pradarshya tapta tapasam Avitripta drishyam nrinam Arayantaradhadyastu Svabimbam lokalochanam. Others?
Pradarsya tapta tapasam avitripta drishamlinam adayantar adharyastu svabimbam lokalochanam pradarsya tapta tapasam
Ladies? Pradarsya tapta tapasam avitripta drisham nrinam adayantaradadyastu svabimbam lokalochanam. Pradarsya tapta tapasam avitripta drisham nrinam adayantaradadyastu svabimbam lokalochanam. Pradarsya, by exhibiting. Atapta, without undergoing. Tapasam, penances. Avitripta drisham, without fulfillment of vision. Nrinam, of persons. Adaya, taking. Antaha, disappearance. Adhat, performed. Yaha, he who. To, but. Svabimbam, his own form. Lokalochanam, public vision. Lord Sri Krishna, who manifested his eternal form before the vision of all on the earth, performed his disappearance by removing his form from the sight of those who were unable to see him as he is, due to not executing required penance. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, translation also. In this verse, the word avitripta drisham is most significant. The conditioned souls in the material world are all trying to satisfy their senses in various ways, but they have failed to do so because it is impossible to be satisfied by such efforts. The example of the fish on land is very appropriate. If one takes a fish from the water and puts it on the land, it cannot be made happy by any amount of offered pleasure. The spirit soul can be happy only in the association of the Supreme Living Being, the personality of Godhead, and nowhere else. How many of you here have witnessed big fish, little fish play? Okay, you. You must have, Jacob. Big fish, little fish. That was one of our favorite plays in the first Brooklyn incarnation of ISKCON, New York. And Gaur-Hari used to play the little fish, although he was not so little, but he used to play little fish. And then, so basically the story, as those of you who have seen it goes, so the little fish sees all the activities on the land and thinks, oh, I can enjoy like those. And he And Maya comes and gives them all sorts of facility to enjoy. There's a nice little video of this also on YouTube. So if you missed it, watch the video. And ultimately, of course, he's never satisfied by anything that is supplied. And finally, he is introduced to Big Fish, Krishna, who brings him back to the ocean where he can be happy. The Lord, by his unlimited causeless mercy, has innumerable Vaikuntha planets in the Brahma-Jyoti sphere of the spiritual world. And in that transcendental world, there is an unlimited arrangement for the unlimited pleasure of the living entities. The Lord himself comes to display his transcendental pastimes, typically represented at Vrindavan, Mathura, and Dwaraka. He appears just to attract the conditioned souls back to Godhead, back home to the eternal world. But for want of sufficient piety, the onlookers are not attracted by such pastimes of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita it is said that only those who have completely surpassed the way of sinful reaction can engage themselves in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. How does that work? Tesham tvantakatam papam. You were just learning verses, but your verse, huh? Yeah. Tebanda. Anyway, basically it says what just was said here. Look it up. Tesham tvantakatam papam. Jnananam punyakarmanam. Apajatato. Anyway, we'll look it up. I have to apologize. I thought it was yesterday, verse 10, so I would have looked at it. And my verses memory is not that strong anymore. That is one of the most there is no comparison to our Srila Prabhupada, is there? Who would give a class and quote this verse and that verse, and verses coming from here and there, every other sentence. If I'm lucky, here he's got it here. Okay. Yesham tvantakatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam drida vrataha. Good. And that is 7:28 Bhagavad Gita. So, and me, I struggle to remember 2-3 verses. Srila Prabhupada would just speak. Practically, he would speak Bhagavatam verses and Gita verses and mix it with some words. This was his glory. The entire Vedic way of ritualistic performances is to put every conditioned soul on the path of piety by strict adherence to the prescribed principles for all orders of social life. One can attain the qualities of truthfulness, control of the mind, control of the senses, forbearance, etc., and can be elevated to the plane of rendering pure devotional service to the Lord. Only by such a transcendental vision are one's material hankerings fully satisfied. So we're hearing here, this is a long purport, so I'm going to intersperse some comments along with the purport. So Srila Prabhupada said the entire Vedic way is to put every conditioned soul on the path of piety. The piety, which we just heard, punya karma. That kind of work, that kind of activity, which is founded on the principles of varna and ashram, prescribed duties, specific qualities. By these activities, including ritual, one can attain the qualities of truthfulness, control of the mind, control of the senses. And then Srila Prabhupada says, and can be elevated. So this arrangement of pious work is meant to provide a platform on which all human beings, because these rules and principles are only designed and only possible for human beings. Can't ask the dogs and the cats to do any of these rituals. Please, now do some yoga, Mr. Dog. Although there is a yoga posture, right? A down dog, right? Practically, I think all the yoga, many of the yoga postures are named after animals. The cobra, the down dog, the swan, they all are connected to animals. But the animals can't do them. They can't do them. Only the human beings can perform yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, all these yogic systems. And what to speak of rituals? What dog can come and offer arti to Krishna? It's not possible. So the human beings are given this facility to worship Krishna in this way. And then it says, only by such a transcendental vision are one's material hankerings fully satisfied. So this is quite interesting, because it is Srila Prabhupada is saying that our material hankerings will be satisfied. Now, what does that mean? Satisfying in the sense that they are subsumed. Like one who is hungry, when his hunger is satisfied, what is the result? He's not hungry anymore. When your hunger is satisfied, you're no longer hungry. So similarly, when your hankering for material desires are satisfied by devotional service, meaning not that you got a lot of it, that you ate a huge amount, or that you had a huge amount of material enjoyment, and therefore you're filled up with, and some people feel that that's the way. If I want to get free of material desire, I've got to have as much of it as I can have, and then I'll be fully, filled up with it, and then I won't want any more because I will just reach the limit. Right? But it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way, because it's just like pouring oil or gas on a fire. The fire just keeps growing. But through devotional service, one's material desires are actually satisfied in the sense that they are subsumed and they're gone. That is the promise of devotional service. How many lifetimes that may take, I don't know. In my case, it probably will be a number. But bit by bit, one by one, little ones perhaps first, the little ones, and then the bigger ones come later. But the promise is there. Devotional service will satisfy, and remove our material hankerings. When the Lord was present, persons who were able to satisfy their material hankerings by seeing Him in true perspective were thus able to go back with Him to His kingdom. But those persons who were unable to see the Lord as He is remained attached to material hankerings and were not able to go back home, back to Godhead. So this is, again, further elaboration on how the Lord satisfies one's material hankerings by giving us a higher taste through our seeing Him and interacting with Him in true perspective. But those persons who were unable to see the Lord, they remained attached. When the Lord passed beyond the vision of all, He did so in His original eternal form, as stated in this verse. The Lord left in His own body. He did not leave His body, as is generally misunderstood by the conditioned souls. This statement defeats the false propaganda of the faithless non-devotees that the Lord passed away like an ordinary conditioned soul. The Lord appeared in order to release the world from the undue burden of the non-believing asuras, and after doing this, He disappeared from the world's eyes. Om Agyanatam Randasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaham Mukong Koroti Vachalam Bangalam Ayate Kurim Jadkripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramanan Shri Chaitanya. Hare Krishna. So we're continuing here with Uddhava's recollections of the departure of Krishna, and then he will continue to remember Krishna's pastimes. And we get the first glimpse in this canto of Sri Krishna's pastimes, which are elaborated on in the 10th canto. So the point being made here, and in the verse that I was preparing for also, the 10, similar points are being made about the nature of the disappearance of Krishna. The atheists, in various forms, who don't see Krishna as He is, they consider that Krishna left he died, that He died, like we die. They even go so far to say that it was His karma, that He died in this particular way on account of His karma. And in fact, there is even some support for this in the narration of this incident in the Mahabharata. Apparently, I was researching this because that was part of the other previous verse's topic, so I was looking into it a little bit. And apparently in the, I'm not sure, it's called Moshala Parva. And Prabhupada uses the term, I think somewhere here, Moshala Lila. Krishna's departure. So, as the story goes, after the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna visits Gandhari. Did you hear about this am I repeating what you heard in the class that I thought? Anyway, so Krishna approaches Gandhari. Gandhari will not forgive Krishna, will not forgive him for the loss of her entire family of her sons, claiming that Krishna did not do enough. He could have stopped this. He didn't do it, but Krishna, I tried. And Gandhari curses him that in 36 years, I'm not actually sure why she says 36 years, but in 36 years, you will suffer the same fate and lose your entire family to violent war. So, this is what happens. 36 years later, terrible omens appear in Dwarka. Krishna, by this time, the youngsters of the city have become quite arrogant in their teenage behavior, or whatever, how adolescent. I'm not sure how old they are. And they play tricks. We've heard that story about how Samba got dressed up as a pregnant lady and approached some rishis in the forest and asked them, they asked, please, will you predict the gender of our child? And one rishi saw through the whole thing and simply cursed, yes, you will have a lump of iron. And a lump of iron does appear somehow. I can't remember everything that transpires. The Lord, seeing the potent of this event, orders that it be ground up into powder. That powder is thrown into the Prabhas Sea. Later, when these omens appear, the Lord instructs his family members, now we must go to the place of pilgrimage in Prabhas, Ketra, and perform austerities to counter all of this. But by this time, the Yadus are so, how should I say, they're by the Lord's will, they've become under the influence of their position as Krishna's family. They indulge in intoxication to the point of total madness. They enter into, and the battle that ensues is described in more detail in the Mahabharata. But ultimately, the reeds growing at the shore of the Prabhas Ocean that had fed on these particles of iron, when touched by the hands of the Yadus, turn into iron clubs and become the weapons of their mass destruction. And they're all finished. Balaram had foreseen this and gone to some distance, sat on the shore of the ocean in his mystic position and departed. Krishna sees all of this and says, yes, finally, the burden of the earth is removed, and prepares himself to depart. And somehow or other, Jara the hunter, who had apparently fashioned a arrow from a piece of iron found in a fish that had eaten some of this lump that was thrown in the ocean. All of these things are described. Mistakes Krishna's heel, the red heel of the Lord, to be a deer. Anyway, somehow he and shoots his arrow, and then the whole activity is incredible. And in fact, the commentators they say, look at this. How can this be anything but the arrangement of Krishna? How is it possible that a hunter simply appears on the scene of this huge carnage? There's 500,000 people lying dead in pools of blood, and a hunter appears to hunt some deer. How is it possible that a deer is hanging around in this context? And what is it? How is it possible that the first thing that the hunter does not do is to take the arrow out of the foot of Krishna? I mean, the whole thing is narrated and described. The whole activity is obviously a drama, a play of the Lord. For what purpose? To give an excuse to the atheists to again not see Krishna, to again be able to invent some story that, as described in the previous verse, that this is the result of his karma, and that Krishna is just an ordinary person. Okay, not just an ordinary person. I mean, obviously he's not just an ordinary person, but he's okay, he's got powers, he's got this, he's that, but he's it can happen. Karma is for everybody, even Krishna. And in this way, the Lord provides the narrative by which the atheists can continue to not see him. To not see him. This happens often. Krishna provides some other way. He even describes, he'll speak in the third person to Arjuna. He says, the supreme, he'll describe it instead of, sometimes he will say, me, sarvad maharamam prityaja, mam ekam saranam braja. But other times he'll surrender to the supreme. And that was the case with the Yadus themselves. The Yadus themselves could not see Krishna as he is. They thought the Supreme, Vasudev, the Paramatma has incarnated as Krishna. That they could see. They could see the divinity in Krishna, but they couldn't see the personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. They couldn't see. They were great devotees. They were Krishna's own family. But they couldn't see. To see Krishna as he is. To see and to accept that Krishna is the supreme person. Not that Krishna is the supreme manifestation of personality of the supreme absolute one, as the Mayavadis would have us. The great one, all pervasive, unknowable, unseeable, without form. I mean, it's because, and Prabhupada uses this term, out of envy, we can't see Krishna as he is. Because ultimately we're here because we think somehow or other we can be Krishna. Not that Krishna, not the Krishna that as he is, but the Krishna that we developed as some concept of a, powerful, attractive, charming, wonderful person with lots of girlfriends. That's maybe what it boils down to. Envy of Krishna's amorous pastimes. And thinking, yes, if I simply worship the demigod, we do some or other, I can also have this kind of life. Or at least a little bit of it. But that's not the fact. Krishna's pastimes, including this pastime of leaving the world, they are not at all comparable to our conditioned life. But if we see the Lord in this proper way, then Prabhupada says here, if we're able to see Him in true perspective, then our material hankerings will be satisfied, and we will be able to go back with Him to His kingdom. So this is the lesson I think we can especially focus on. How do we satisfy ourselves? How do we orient all our desires towards the service of Krishna? How do we see Him as He is and thus become satisfied in every way and go back to Him? How do we do this? How do we do this? So Prabhupada is stressing this. He says, he begins this whole purport saying, in this verse, the word avitripta drisham is most significant. And the translation, and I'm trying to understand this a little bit, because it's translated as avitripta drisham, without fulfillment of vision. Avitripta drisham. Now tripta, we use that word every day, right? Who remembers, where do we use the word tripta? Every morning. Kritvaiva triptim. First we say, Chaturvida Bhagavat Prasado Swadvina triptam Hari Bhakta Sangham Kritvaiva triptim. So triptim, satisfied. Triptam is that being satisfied. And here the word is avitripta drisham. And it's translated without avitripta drisham, without fulfillment of vision. And Prabhupada says the words is most significant. The conditioned souls in the material world are all trying to satisfy their senses in various ways, but they have failed to do so because it's impossible to be satisfied in such efforts. So it appears to me, as I said, I didn't get a chance to study for this verse, but I'm trying to understand how this word is connected here. But it's drisham, meaning seeing, and without fulfillment. So in other words, because they're not seeing Krishna, and the translation says, who manifested His eternal form before the vision of all on the earth, performed His disappearance by removing His form from the sight of those who were unable to see Him, so that I'm getting here that the conception is that He's removing His form but he's also not removing. In other words, he's removing the form that those who are unable to truly see him, because they're seeing the manifest form, and that's what they're considering, this is Krishna. And now he's removing that and they're thinking Krishna is gone. Whereas the devotees, they understand that Krishna never disappears. He may disappear from our vision, but his form is eternal. And that form, though we may not see it, is still there. That's the mode of true vision of Krishna. Not to see that Krishna, oh, now he's manifest and we can see him, but if something were to happen, like, it does happen even to our deities sometimes. We have Jagannath sometimes goes in the ocean. Every 9 years, Navakalevaram? I'm not sure how many, 12 years? Anyway, he gets a new body, so to speak, and his old body is gone into the ocean. So even though the manifestation goes, the Lord is always present. And that vision of seeing Krishna as eternally, his form as eternal, with that vision, we can serve him and go back to him. But those who see this pastime of the Lord's departure as one of leaving his body, because a body was there, from what we've heard. There was a body. It's not, like in the case of Balaram, this is what I recall, and anyone who knows better can correct me if I'm wrong. In the case of Balaram, he just disappears. But Krishna, as I've understood, leaves behind, just to help bewilder the atheists, a form. And something happens. There's a cremation or something goes on. Whereas it is described that what he leaves behind is his universe, that represents his leaving behind the universal form or something like that. I remember hearing this. Does anybody else remember this?
I just read something, yeah, it says Balaram absorbed himself within himself.
Yes, he just
went away.
Goes away. But that Krishna leaves behind something. And again, for the materialists, they'll see, oh, now, to reinforce their blindness, so to speak. Because without that blindness, they cannot pursue their agenda. Chaitanya's got an idea. All right, anyway, this is homework for today. And whoever speaks tomorrow can reveal everything. Or maybe if I find it, I can share it on our group. So these are some lessons, that by seeing the Lord as he is, to seeing his eternal form, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvataha tyaktva deham punarjanmanaiti mam eti Arjuna. That when we see the janma, the birth, the karma, and this, the end, the moshala, I think it's called, anyway. When we see this as all transcendental, in truth, we see the truth of it, then when we leave these bodies, because we don't have eternal bodies right now, the bodies we experience today are not eternal. We know that. And they get old, and they get diseased, and so we're going to leave them. but we continue to exist. And we will have spiritual bodies with which we can associate with Krishna in his spiritual world. That is his promise. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. So we have a few more minutes for, yes, Jai Govinda.
In relation to the Abhitripta Drisha,
Drisham, yeah.
satisfied by what they saw. Krishna verse we all know, it's an important verse, but I have to read it because I don't remember it as well as I used to. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samabhrita mudho yam navijanati lokamam ajam abhiyam. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I am covered by my eternal creative potency, yogamaya, and so the deluded world knows me not, who am unborn and infallible.
Yes. Avadananti mamudha nananam tanu ashritam. Yes, the same. Krishna repeats this. He says, you can't see me without devotion. So you found something.
Yeah, I found something about Balaram leaving. One thing in the first canto, Prabhupada has a purport about a white snake. After he left the battle of Duryodhana and was upset, then he went into meditation and a white snake came out and it was Sheshanag carrying him away. And then in the 11th canto it just says he merged himself within himself. And then also during that Prabhashetra, when they all were fighting, it's actually 560 million Yadus.
A million, okay, not 1,000 million, okay.
Yeah. And when Krishna got his foot shot, from the point of view of the hunter, he thought it looked like a deer, so he shot it, and it said it pierced his foot. But then, from the point of view of Krishna, because he's such an
It just touched his
so
foot.
Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says the hunter felt so bad that he did that to Krishna. He was trying to apologize and everything, and he would have taken it out, but he didn't. Since Shukadev never mentions that, and he concludes that it's just because you can't really pierce his body, so it just grazed him, and then that's it.
Yes, without his, this wonderful, wonderful pastime of the Lord to accomplish, because he does, his pastimes are meant to accomplish so many things at once, to satisfy, to please the devotees, but also to facilitate the desires of those who would like to ignore Krishna and go about their vain attempts to enjoy this world. Yes, Chaitanya.
So, you're saying that those who are not properly situated, they can't see Krishna's actual form, they just see the form he manifested. So is that the same with Vaishnavas and the spiritual master? Like Srila Prabhupada, his form, he doesn't look like the same. He doesn't look the same in the spiritual world as he does here. He has a different form.
Yes, we don't have a vision of the eternal form of our acharyas, although we do have descriptions sometimes of Rupa Manjari and Ananga Manjari manifesting, Rupa Manjari manifesting as Rupa Goswami. So we have some descriptions sometimes of the spiritual forms of our acharyas, which we can visualize. But when we think of the external forms, the forms that they accept in this world to carry out their missions, those also are spiritualized. So we should still accept those, and we can worship the acharyas and put those bodies into, like you say, we can put them into samadhi, or we can create and make murtis and so on, in order to reinforce our connection and to bring our... That was very nice yesterday. I was overhearing Hansarupa was relating the answer to a similar question that one devotee posed to Srila Prabhupada about his presence in his photo. And Prabhupada's response was, as you see me there, I am there. In other words, it's not like that just by the creation of the photo, then automatically Prabhupada's presence is there in that photo in some mystical way, but that his presence comes in by our love and willingness and openness to see him there, and he is then, that connection is there. Now with Krishna, it's even without having that love, Krishna is still present, like in his deity form, he's present there and can be offended by the atheists who, and not offended in the sense of, not that he takes offense, but that they can commit offenses and they can suffer reactions from not having, perceiving Krishna in that way. Krishna is present there. But the point being that when we see Srila Prabhupada, we have his form here, we have a murti here, and we feel that we see him there. Our memory, our consciousness of him comes forth, and we consider, yes, I'm offering you this flower, and this is for you, Prabhupada. And we can be assured that Prabhupada is receiving that. And this is all very mystical, but this is what he said. So I can't explain it much further than that, but Hare Krishna. All right, thank you so much. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Pancharatna Prabhu ki.
Hare Krishna.